Questions? Sorry, hang on 1 second, hold that thought. Go.
This is going to sound like really dark, but when you say neutral spine, can you just talk me through what exactly you mean by neutral spine? It's one of those things where you think, well, I should know what that means.
I should know what that means, but what does it mean?
I want to know for myself exactly what it means.
Surely, okay. Did you all hear that? Okay. So, loosely speaking, what neutral spine means is where the human organises themselves, where all the weight-bearing parts of the vertebrae stack up one on top of the other. So the spine is neither excessively hollowed or excessively rounded. And people can do that low down, like I'm doing, or they might do it higher up. Anything that misaligns the spine will put stress and strain on the spine, will put too much movement in the spine. That's another thing that I was taught, was to take the movement of the horse in my back and spend years trying to cultivate my wiggle in the middle, and then years later trying to stop doing that. Because I then worked out that it was far healthier for my spine and far better for the horse's movement if I use my hip joint instead of my spine. So what that means when you're in neutral spine is that your seat bones will point straight down, and you will have your hang on. I press the button, I don't know what it does. I hope it's not self-destruct. Let's go back. This is a good question. Don't go back, would you, please? Then the curves of the spine are much less exaggerated than they are in when the rider is either round or hollow. And the ASIs, these wings of the pelvis, can you see those knobs there? You can feel them on yourself at the front there. Something like coming noise in my coat, I don't think it's like that anymore. Will be exactly on top of your pubic bone. And in Pilates they talk about neutral pelvis. But there's a really easy way that each of you can check whether or not you're in neutral spine. And all it requires for you to do is to sit more on the edge of your seat. So rather than being sat back against the seat, bring yourselves forward towards the edge of the seat, just so you're more or less balanced. And then put the thumb of one hand on the notch of your collarbone, where that little V shape is. Okay? Outstretch the fingers of the same hand so that your little finger is on your sternum, which is the bone where, if you're a lady, a bra goes across. Okay? It's that hard bone where your ribs join together. And then you stick the thumb of the other hand, I can't do both at the same time because the microphone, in your belly button. And your little finger then will be positioned on top of your pubic bone. So these would be what I would define as the 4 points of your front. Collarbone, sternum, belly button, pubic bone. And when the rider is aligned in neutral spine, you can drop a plumb line down through those places. The hollow rider, the belly button thumb will come forward, the collarbone thumb will go back. In the round rider, the belly button will go back and often the collarbone will come forward. But if you can drop a plumb line, it doesn't matter how much or how little cleavage or belly a rider has got, that's always true. Those 4 points will always line up, as they do on this rider here. Does that help give a clearer definition of what it means to be a neutral? Yeah, and it is a really useful self-check. Yeah.
You can imagine pushing yourself into what you think would be a neutral spine.
I think you make a really good point, because sometimes what you feel is not the same as how it looks. It's a proprioceptive issue where you may not have an awareness of where really you are within space, but if you kind of poke a couple of times a day for a couple of weeks, you'll know. I don't have to check anymore, but I didn't have a clue when I started off with this.
So perhaps the way to look at it, so I'm not forcing my spine, is to check the plumb line.
Check the plumb line. Check the plumb line. Sounds like a really good plan. Someone had a question over here.
You mentioned core strength.
Oh yes.
What exercise would you recommend for that? Because I find that if you tend to focus on core strength, then you end up being round back because you feel like pulling your stomach in.
Yeah.
Back.
Yeah. Okay. Did you all hear that? Okay. So what do I mean by core strength? And again, this is a really good question. I would define core strength as the way that the rider would utilise the muscles of the core to facilitate holding neutral spine. And certainly, like horses, humans cheat. And I don't mean that they cheat on purpose. So sometimes you might say to someone, you've got to engage the muscles of your core, and rather than engage the muscles of their core, they'll stretch this way. And it gives them the illusion of as if they have a flatter stomach, but they haven't engaged the core at all. What they've done is taken and straightened their back, shoulders and neck, and stretched. Or, like you say, the other misunderstanding could be that the rider could take the Pilates instruction of belly button to spine to the extreme and begin to advance the pubic bone of the hips. Core strength is essentially what each of you use when you sweep the yard. Like anyone who sweeps like this is not a very effective sweeper, and Holly, they don't get a job on my yard. Okay? Anyone who knows how to get the power of their pelvis behind the broom, that's what I mean by core strength. And it's not just riders that do this. It's a real buzzword in sort of sports generally now, isn't it? But you're right, it can be misunderstood. Different bodies will respond to that in very different ways, so it's a good point. So it's whatever amount of holding one has to do to keep the spine neutral, the way that we discussed with the other question. Anything else? Hi. Oh no. She's a solicitor. Oh, she was. To me, I don't think there is. There may be as a sort of dictionary definition, and it may be different things to different people, but I wouldn't see that. And maybe, Catherine, core stability is a better way of looking at it. Maybe core stability would stop people from misunderstanding the way that the other lady asked that question. So perhaps it's more appropriate to talk about core stability than core strength. Although I think the reason I tend to use core strength more than core stability, although I may rethink that now, is because most people are not strong enough in their core.
That's why I wonder if you don't necessarily have to be strong and fit and tight to be effective or to do that.
Well, not in a sort of bodybuilding type way, no. But in an awareness type way, yes. Yes. Okay. Esther.
So what can a normal rider do to improve their core? Is it something like, tummy crunches or those old-fashioned tummy exercises?
Yeah. Do you know what I really think the main difference, and maybe this is just because I'm so not into the gym, can you tell? Is awareness. I think that there is huge value in Pilates if done with really skillful eyes on the ground. Because some Pilates schools slightly misunderstand and pull the belly button rather too back and lift the pubic bone too up and engage too much hamstring, which of course you don't want. A bit like this lady was asking here. But I think Pilates is really useful because it does teach you how to stabilise the core and move the limbs, which is exactly what a rider and a horse need to be able to do. But really, I think just awareness. I mean, there's pretty much not a time where I don't engage my core. I'm not engaging it now, by the way. Okay? Can you hear any difference in my voice? Yeah? Whereas now it's back on. Okay? So I'm pretty sure it's what singers and actors and people who make teachers too, who have to project through the space and really be a presence, know how to do. And those of us that aren't so effective by it sort of don't know how to do it and don't put it out. Sometimes you have to kind of pretend. Acting as if, I think people would call that. So I think there are some great exercise techniques that you use, but I think mainly awareness and just doing it all the time. I know that sounds really boring, but even kind of driving your car, as you sit at your computer, if you only save it for when you ride your horse, you're unlikely to get the kind of core stability that becomes easy. It'll always be in conscious thought. Anything? Thank you. Hi. Right. Yes. Right. Wrong. Yeah. Okay. Did you hear that? So what she was saying is that she can't feel her seat bones unless she feels them with her hands. Is that right? So when in the saddle, you can't be absolutely certain which. No. Okay. So there's a number of reasons that might be. It might just be a proprioceptor issue. You just may not be that aware of it. And there are some of us who are not. I mean, I think I spent quite a long time going, what? Usually, if you can't feel them though, probably the muscles underneath are too tight. So you may be what Mary Wallace calls popped up. So top of hamstring glutes can be quite tight. When they are, then you're unlikely to get a real sense of connection of the seat bone and the seat bone really being down. So it might be worth thinking about, how do I engage my core without tightening my bum? Okay. And another way of knowing it, even if you can't feel it, is through the 4 points of the front. Because if the 4 points of the front, you have your plumb line, you will be seat bone straight down. You will be. Okay. Who else? Are we done?
Well, sorry, Mum.
Go on.
That old one of lifting knees up in front of the saddle, is that a bit of a tricky one?
What, to feel seat bones?
Yeah, and to ensure you're not curvy or slouching.
I think that's terrifically useful to do. So what Hester was saying there is, if the exercise of bringing one or both knees over the front of the saddle on either stride or an obliging horse, maybe someone whispering sweet nothings while you do it, will certainly facilitate the rider in taking a low down hollow out, and may bring the seat bones into clearer contact. The difficulty then lay in how do I bring the thigh back down without either hollowing the back or tightening under my backside again. But yes, in terms of bringing it to the rider's awareness, I think that's terrifically useful as an exercise and one that I will do quite a lot. And I will often support the waist of the rider's thigh as well, until the skeleton sort of sinks down inside the flesh. It's almost the description I would give it, because sometimes we're trying so hard that we're somewhere up inside ourselves almost. But it is a useful exercise, and one certainly that I don't use all the time, but I think it's very useful. Okay, good. Well, I think in that... Oh, no. Go on.
I'm really excited to ask me because it may well be quite ignorant. You're talking about the core stability.
Yes.
And you're saying about doing it all the time.
Yes.
You're not necessarily speaking about strength, are you? Or are you more thinking about plumb line?
Yeah.
Just when I'm driving, when I'm walking.
Yeah, enough strength to hold your plumb line aligned. So as I stand here talking to you now, it doesn't take a whole load of strength, but if I'm riding medium trot, by Christ it does. Or if I'm on a horse that wants to take control of the speed of the legs, either by being whizzy or by being really lazy, then it's going to take some strength of the core. So when you become able and aware of engaging the core and what the plumb line feels like, and you're able to live your life in that place, then you can turn the volume up and down depending on the need. And certainly, for example, I think a good sort of little story to tell you is a client of mine who, in fact, she used to live in Billericay. She and her husband and her now 2 horses have moved to Wales. And she had a big Irish horse called Badger, who was possibly the world's laziest horse. And she had to engage her core for all she was worth to motivate Badger to move forward. He was a very handsome boy, but he didn't want to engage his core, he didn't want to move forward. And she saved up and went out to Portugal to buy a Lusso. And she rang me from Portugal because she was getting on all these Lusitanos and doing her bear down for Britain on these Lusos, and these Lusos were picking her ankle all over the place because she just didn't need to do it on them. Now her husband hunts badger and she dressage the Luso.